Greetings, friends, countrymen. All you people. So today I'm going to do something I don't normally do, which is respond to one of the responses to me. Most of the time I don't, because they're usually not directly addressed at me, or they just don't irritate me enough to take mention of them. But this one kind of irritated me, only because not only is the gentleman responsible come off as a very, very arrogant British fellow. The video is addressed, it's responding to one of my videos, and it's quite clear that he's talking about some of the things that I said. He never said my name, and that kind of irritates me, because, figure that shit out for yourself. So this video was a response to Republican discussion, or RE Republican discussion, something. One of those videos that I put out about talking about the Republican Party and my opinions on it and how I thought I fell into it. And I've kind of always regretted those videos, because I don't, when you even try to, I don't know, when you even compare any of the things that you think with one group or whatever, people are going to automatically lump you in with that. The only reason I've ever claimed to be any sort of Republican is because the only party that has any people involved in it that come even close to some of the stuff that I want done. Okay? So that's why I fall on that, because that's, that's what I'm stuck with. But this gentleman, the video he posted is called "The Real Republican Myth," and in the info box it says, "You're all fascists, quit bitching." Now, I'd like to point out, first of all, that he never explains how or why he thinks Republicans are fascists. That never comes up. So don't be waiting to hear that, because he doesn't explain it, which only irritated me more. Now, I've written down some of the points that he's talked about. He goes on to the first thing. He's mocking the idea that people like me say that the Republicans have always been anti-war. I think I've been very careful not to say exactly that, and if I had, I've misspoken. The Republicans are not anti-war, but the one thing that the Republicans are, and this was consistent for quite a long period of time, is that the Republicans were not interested in nation building. The Republicans were not interested in going out and fighting a bunch of policing the world kind of battles. That was not the sort of thing that they want, and that's the sort of thing that I'm looking for. Democrats seem to like to go out and get involved in shit that's none of our fucking business, more often than not. Of course, that's shifted. There's not much you can do about this. The best way I can describe the Republican Party is to say that they definitely go with the idea of do as I say, not as I do. Because the people who have gotten power in the Republican Party have not had a good record of going through with what they say their position is, and that's part of the problem we have here. He goes on to say that he's going to give us a history lesson, which I love to be given a history lesson about American politics from a very annoying British fellow. Most British folks understand this, but some still don't. The accent does not make you more intelligent. If anything, when you're spewing bullshit, it makes you sound more arrogant. I recommend that you remember that next time you make a video. He goes on to talk about several things. First, he calls Teddy Roosevelt a monster. He never really goes in to explain that statement, which is quite a fucking statement. Teddy Roosevelt is well loved by people of all political ideologies in this country, and with good reason. He was a solid president. He did many good things for this country's infrastructure and for protecting our wildlife and whatnot. And he used American force when it was necessary, when it truly protected our interests. Take the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal is has a direct link to the safety of the United States of America. So he wielded American power to make sure that that shit went through the way that we wanted to. And that's fine with me. That's okay. I have no problem with fucking using American power if it's truly necessary. Now, true, he presided over the some of the fighting with the people in the Philippines, but he didn't start that, and that should have been a lesson to us for what things like Vietnam and Iraq would have been like. We shouldn't say that Iraq is another Vietnam. We should say that Vietnam is another Philippines. He goes on to say something. He said that TR brings in the Republican ideals of fascism. Again, he doesn't explain that. He goes on to say that TR did the horrible thing of regulating the meat industry after Upton Sinclair's book came out, which he says is complete fiction, and that's not true. There are embellishments in that book. It is not complete 100% true, but it is also not complete 100% fiction. But I don't understand what the evil here is. Oh no, they regulated an unsafe and dirty industry. Confederal Socialists is one of the only other people I found that have argued this point, to try to say that like meat packing plants in the early 20th century were safe and clean. Give me a fucking break. And I don't. They wouldn't have changed if they hadn't been forced to. They wouldn't have. All right, at least not then. There wasn't enough public awareness of that issue at the time. He goes on to say that another evil thing that he did was help break up Standard Oil, which was considered a monopoly at the time. He claims that Standard Oil had a 60% share at the time that happened. I don't know if that's true, but I'm willing to take his words on it. But the weird thing about it is he says this is evil. This is a barrier. He said that in putting legislation on the meatpacking industry is a barrier to entry, but breaking up, even if it is only 60%, an extremely overly influential company to open up room for competitors, that's a barrier to entry. It would seem that Standard Oil is the barrier to entry here. These ideas tend to butt up against each other. He claims that progressivism was a disaster. I don't know exactly what he means by that. I guess you could talk about the ensuing war and the Depression, but progressivism wasn't the reason for that. And if you'll remember, it was a Democrat who was in charge at the time that World War I broke out. It was a Democrat who presided when they enacted the Federal Reserve, and it was the Federal Reserve Act and the sorts of lending practices that led to the Great Depression in the first place. And it was not a Republican that did that. It was a Democrat that did that. Now, I'm not going to blame Woodrow Wilson for that shit, because he can't know that. It's not his fault. But it is not okay to blame somehow Teddy Roosevelt and progressivism for that shit. Alright, so I don't know what the hell this kid's problem is. I get irritated when they just paint things with fascism, because it shows how little people understand about fascism. Fascism is not just something you don't like. Okay, fascism is a thing. Fascism is a political ideology. Okay, read about it. There are certain things that fascists do. You can't just go around calling anybody you want that doesn't agree with you a fascist. It's not okay. It's not helpful. It's not even helpful if you want to stop what they're doing. Okay? Fucking dog. And to not only call somebody a fascist and not be able to explain it, kind of pisses me off. If anything, that sounds like propaganda, which sounds like the kind of thing that fascists would do. But I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. I just find it so very strange to have a British person with a "Don't Tread on Me" flag as their channel description. I don't know. So, I would say, first of all, to all British people, remember, if you don't know what you're talking about, you will come off as a douchebag. Don't call people fascists unless you can explain it, and don't let some British kid try to explain to you the history of American politics, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So, I'll see you folks later.